Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask you to join me in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Mason.
Fryrick?
Here.
Mr. Posnow? Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Scalette?
Here.
Mr. Schrader?
Here.
Mr. Sears?
Here.
Mr. Tillman?
Here.
Mr. Watts?
Here.
And a reminder to please silence your cell phone during the meeting. It's time for public comment. All comments and questions will be addressed to the President. Board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting unless recognized by the President for this purpose. Comments will be limited at the discretion of the President to 5 minutes or less. Any takers? Okay. If you give us your name and address and...
Sharon Stutz, 296 Cherry Road, Liverpool, Pennsylvania, 17045. That's Perry County, guys, if you're wondering. I'm here tonight just to quickly update the school board. Many of you I recognize. I'm nervous. I apologize. Some as students, some as parents. But I would like to share with you a little bit about and update the school board on my enrichment programs that I do with the kids, the 2 trips. The one is for 8th grade, and that is to D.C. and King's Dominion. We always allow the kids and get the kids a chance to lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And it's the 4 children that are selected for that. It's quite an honor to be able to walk and be on the actual Tomb of the Unknown Soldier property. It's only 8th grade, and the wreath says from York Suburban 8th grade. So that's quite a fun thing for me to watch the children do that. We do that on Saturday. Sunday we give them a fun day in King's Dominion. With that being said, I do an oceanography program. 48 years ago I started it. I was young and dumb. I was at Mount Rose Elementary. My mother had passed away, and so my whole life was my kids. And I often think about my first trip. When I first took my students to, it was called Wallops Island at the time. It was the pre-college oceanography program out of Millersville. I was taking a course there, and I realized I could take kids overnight. And so I came to the school board, got approval, and I took just my students. You would not believe the other 6th grade teachers that gave homework while we were gone. But anyway, I can remember the morning we left, and there was the bus, and I always took a parent couple. So my first parent couple was Sue and John Schmidt. Maybe some of you know who I'm talking about. And because at that time, Mount Rose, a lot of the children never saw a mom and dad in the home. And so it was always neat to have a parent couple. I think I took Wendy's mom and dad one year, didn't I, as a parent couple. And so with that being said, the day that we left, all the parents were there, and they were standing around talking about letting their child go overnight. And there were 2 mamas standing there, and they were standing beside a father. And they were saying, boy, I just don't know if I should let that teacher, she's really young, I'm just not really sure. And the father is agreeing and whatever. And the one mother looked over and said, I don't know exactly who your child is. And my dad said, my daughter's the teacher. And he was as apprehensive about me going with those students as the other parents were.
48 years later, there's a lot of history.
I have taken, now I'm starting to take children of children. When I retired, my daughter-in-law said, "What would you like for retirement?" And I said, "I would like to have all my students in one big room
So I could say, oh, what are you doing and where are you?
He laughed, my son laughed, and my first day of retirement,
My daughter-in-law put me on Facebook,
I had no clue what Facebook
but it came
was.
up.
And so one day I was reading Facebook, and it came up as when I
Told my parents I wanted to be a marine biologist. They cried. When I told my friends, they laughed. When I told my kids, or my
friend, my cat, he hid.
today I get my PhD in marine biology.
Today.
That was
Oh, yeah.
right when I retired 13 years ago.
And so with that,
I
wanted to get back to him. It's my former student, Justin Krebs.
And so I called my daughter-in-law and I said,
Steph, how do I get back to him? She said, Mom, you just type it in. Well, I typed it in and it didn't go anywhere. So
I called her back and I said,
I typed it in, but it didn't go anywhere. And she said, you hit enter. So I hit enter and Justin got
got right back to me and he said, "Mrs.
I
Stutz,
remember standing in the marsh in 6th grade saying, this is what I want to do for a living.
and Justin Krebs
Has his PhD in marine biology,
and helps me teach every year. His wife,
comes down to help me do the teaching.
I have another former student, her
Her
name
name is Deb Parthry.
she is at VIMS.
Virginia Institute of Marine Science, because of this oceanography trip.
Tom Miller helps me
He will soon retire
hire from Montgomery County firefighters in charge of hazmat in
in Maryland. But these people feel strong enough to come on this trip to still help me teach. I
don't do
the Marine Science Consortium. It was
too expensive. So my teachers about
25 years ago.
got together one weekend,
We went down to
Chincoteague, the park rangers taught us what to do. We wrote lesson plans. They taught us how the equipment we needed. My 86-year-old father
build the equipment that we still use today.
That being said, we have taken as high as
4 buses, 200 kids. We are
now
now
down to about 70 kids a year.
this year.
I only have 35. And the reason
I only have 35, 17 of which
are repeaters is that I can't get access to the kids anymore. I can't.
hand them the brochures that say who I am and have them introduced to me. Mr. Knoll
What if I went nonprofit? I have a little company called Mountain View Travel, and I have that because I can't run it through my own. But do I make money? Heavens, I wish you would see the books. But anyway, I tried to do a nonprofit, which is going to cost me between $5,000 and $10,000.
to do that.
And really, this is my
48th year.
I only want 2 more years, and
so
I'm asking for suggestions from the school board if there's anything I could or should do to be able to continue this the next 2 years about getting into the building. And
but I understand times have changed. So with that being said, all I'm asking is maybe you can give me some suggestions or just say to me, you know, lady, 48 years is enough time.
that's what I'm here for. So I don't know whether
I have to ask or just...
I wanted to explain.
Well, thank you for the explanation, and I don't know, perhaps the best bet would be if there's a phone call could take place between administration. I mean, I don't know that exceptions can be made. I'm not saying that, but I see no reason why conversation couldn't be had.
Thank you very much. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment? Okay, the minutes, approval of the minutes of the regular monthly meeting of May 6th and the planning committee meeting of April 15th, 2019. Any comments, corrections, anything regarding those minutes? If not, then is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Right? Any opposed? Then we can have those stand as submitted. Mr. Sears, Treasurer's Report.
Start with the report of estimated interest earnings for the month. This is from investments that we use. This time I estimated that the month of April generated just over $98,000 in interest. So when I look at things in chunks of money, that's about enough to fund a teacher for a year. So I think that's a pretty darn good return, given the economic times and I think the concerns which are legitimate to taxpayers. For the remainder of this, we have a consent agenda as usual. Would any board member like any of the items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of the items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below-mentioned items.
Second?
Second.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. For the board president's report, we need to recognize Ms. Geyer tonight. This is her last meeting. To recognize her, I have a handy-dandy plaque here for her. It says Lauren Geyer in recognition of outstanding service as student representative to the York Suburban School Board, 2018-2019. So if you want to come forward. Truly outstanding reports. I think we've all said that from time to time, that you've done a great job, and we appreciated our connection to the students, which is why we're all here. So thank you very much. I should also recognize her. She was recognized the other night over at Wisehaven as one of the top members of her class academically. So you find time to keep all those balls in the air. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The board met following the Planning Committee meeting on May 6th, 2019, in executive session as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter. No official action was taken. At this time, we have a recommendation for Corrine Mason to be appointed board secretary for a 2-year term beginning June 1, 2019, as part of her responsibilities as the Director of Finance and Operation. I need a motion for that.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, or vote?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. And we also have a recommendation for Joel Sears to be appointed treasurer for 1 year, beginning July 1, 2019, at no compensation.
So moved.
Which part?
Double it.
They got to pay you to fire you, just remember that. Ms. Mason?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, item E, we need to appoint up to 2 voting delegates for the Pennsylvania School Board Association Delegate Assembly, which is scheduled on Friday, October 18th. I know Mrs. Fryrick has agreed to be one of those. Are there other interest?
Yeah, I'd like.
Any? Okay. Anybody else? All right. So can we have a motion then for Mrs. Fryrick and Mr. Watts to be our delegates?
Second.
Okay.
Change their mind.
Ms. Mason?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, and our thanks to both of you for agreeing to represent us. And speaking of PSBA, tonight we have Karen Devine with us from PSBA. She's here to let us know a little bit about our organization and some of the services that they offer. So,
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm your Member Services Manager from PSBA. I cover 115 districts in South Central PA. I go all the way from Cambria, Somerset to Lancaster and Lebanon. So I gave all of you some handouts. My card is attached. If you ever need anything from PSBA and you're not sure who to call, I hope you'll call me. I provide some direct services, but also I try to link you to the other services that you may need. I thank you for your membership, and I thank you for all you do as school board members. And thank you for coming to our conference and agreeing to be delegates as well, and coming to Advocacy Day. And you've been active over the years, and we certainly do appreciate that. So in the handouts, before I start with that, I also want to thank you for using our policy services, our administrative regulations, and you are also all access members, so you can actually look at the one postcard I gave you and participate in any one of these classes or all of them on our website. You just log in using your login information when you go into members only in our site, and if you're not sure exactly how to log in, just email me and I'll make sure you have the login information. We have recommended year 1, 2, 3, and 4 classes. Now, we did not note Act 55 requirements on this card yet. We are updating it. But you probably know that after this election, all school directors that are re-elected and any new school directors have to comply with Act 55 mandatory training, so it's only 2 hours for sitting or seasoned board members, and then 4 for any new school board members. We did not advocate for that law. I just want you to know that. We didn't agree with it. You're the only elected officials that need to go through that mandatory training. But now that it's here, we try to make it as easy as possible. These classes are only about 20 minutes long, and you only need 2 hours, and we'll help you. And if you choose not to go online and take the classes and you'd rather go to a live event, you can come to PSBA. We'll be posting the dates. We'll do some live events in December. So you could come one day for applied school director training and satisfy the requirement. And then it's nice because you can network with people. So that's my update on that, but email me if you need anything or have any questions. I actually have an Act 55 Q&A sheet that I didn't bring along, but I can email it to anyone who's interested. We're asking boards to also consider adopting the principles for governance and leadership, because everything we do with PSBA is directly linked to these principles. And then, after you do that, we send you a poster, and board members sign the poster, and you can put it in your boardroom. And then you'll see all of the classes are color-coded along with each of these principles. And I also wanted to share with you your advocacy ambassador, Devonna Ricard. You may have already heard from her. So she takes care of a lot of advocacy for the South Central PA as well. So if you hear from her, that's what she does for us. And then I have a few other cards in there that you can look at later. But I also wanted you to know that we're updating the Essentials of School Board Service booklet too. And you can see I use this a lot. One of the things I do is school director training, roles and responsibilities, and things like that. And we are updating this because the laws are always changing, and we make sure this stays up to date. So all the sitting board members will get these, and if you would have any new ones coming on. And then the Essentials of Parliamentary Procedure, we can supply these to you as well. We have links. And then finally, the 2019 State of Education Report. You should have all received this, and if you are interested in a summary of the top findings from this report, I can email it to you. Those that came to Advocacy Day do have a copy, and I did put one copy in your board president's kit, so you can easily reproduce it. But these are the top findings, your top 3 challenges, your top 5 budget pressures. Across the state, overwhelmingly, we did hear from over 60% of the districts, and this is what came out of that report. So I would be happy to share that with you as well. Some things coming up. June 28th is the deadline for the 2020 legislative platform proposals. So if you have anything your board would like to submit, please get those to us by the end of June. July 11th and 12th is the solicitors symposium in State College. July 30th and 31st is board secretaries in the Poconos. And then our conference in October, which you already mentioned, begins on the 17th, I believe. So again, thank you for all you do as school board members, and I hope you'll call me if you need anything at all. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. And that concludes the President's report. Dr. Williams.
Thank you. Tonight in the superintendent's report, a couple of things I wanted to mention. The printed report is in front of you, but I'll breeze through a lot of these topics. School Safety and Community Violence Grant was a competitive grant that Dr. Ketterman and Mr. Henry worked many hours to try to secure, and were successful in getting awarded $418,000 and change. That's a significant amount of money, 17th highest award in the state. Some of that money is earmarked for safety assessments, some of it's earmarked for upgrading camera surveillance systems, and some of it's earmarked for school police officer, which is an item that we'll need to talk about at Personnel Committee so that we can figure out if, how, and when the best way is to do that. And what I do also want to mention, too, is that there's a difference between an SRO and an SPO. It's very important to understand the difference as we have that conversation. School resource officer is an employee of the police department that oversees the jurisdiction wherever the building is in. So, for example, we have 2 jurisdictions within our school district. So, your name tag's upside down. Sorry. It was bothering me, too. We have 2 jurisdictions in the school district, Springsbury and Spring Garden. So if we go the school resource officer route, and if we want to staff the entire district with a SRO, we need 2, one from each jurisdiction. And without some special arrangements, never the twain shall meet. So it's better off if we would look at a school police officer situation where it's our employee, which would have jurisdiction over any of our property and any of our buildings. So there's 2 different ways to look at it. So that'll be one of the things that we'd have to have a conversation about how to proceed with that. On another note, Superintendent Academy, we hosted in early May about 30 superintendents and executive directors from mostly Eastern Pennsylvania. A few trickled in from Western PA because the Eastern PA event fit their schedules better. And they toured York Tech one day and York Suburban the next. And we're very pleased with what they saw, because what they saw was kind of unusual. The day they were here happened to be the day when we did cardboard boat races, a physics class, which was something they've probably never seen before. And it is really interesting. And there were various other things going on that happened to be going on that day. The Link crew was orienting 8th grade students, and the 8th grade students were also participating in a planetarium presentation from Mr. Whiteley. And most of the schools, I think all of the schools that were there on that day, none of them had a planetarium, so that was interesting. At the elementary level, they saw Forest Kindergarten, which you saw some of that at the last board meeting, and they found that to be pretty exciting. And they also saw a presentation on the Impact Foundation, which many of them have nothing like that in their school systems. So they were all very interested in all the things we had to show them, and they had a good time here at York Suburban. Another item I want to mention is the conceptual framework for facilities and considerations about what we're going to do going forward. Presented this at the Facilities Committee meeting last time, and it's a different way of looking at what we can do to educate the growing numbers that we're anticipating in the school system. The school board, you guys told us back in, I think it was March, I think we had the special meeting, that option 1 of the options that Gilbert laid out was the preferred option at that point, but you also tasked us with coming up with some other concept that we could consider. And that's exactly what we did, and we laid it out for you at the last Facilities Committee meeting. Since that time, we've had some more internal conversations, and we want to present a twist on what we presented last time. And if you look at the table on the handout I gave you, you can see the 2 different concepts. And big difference between the two concepts is third grade. Third grade either being in primary or third grade being in intermediate. We have administrators who strongly believe that third grade should be in the primary because it gives it a tested subject in the primary level. That's a sound, rational argument. Others believe space-wise we might be better off putting third grade in what is now the middle school. So there's pros and cons to both kinds of options, but those are things that we'll have to hash out going forward. So the last thing I wanted to mention was the ESSA federal reports. Every Student Succeeds Act replaces the No Child Left Behind Act. No Child Left Behind, you may remember we had this thing called the School Performance Profile, which was important for No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind is dead. ESSA is in place now, and now we have a different measuring tool, and those links to those measuring tools are on our website, and the URL is listed there in the handout. And then the enrollment report is attached. Not a lot of significant changes from last time. And that concludes the formal superintendent's report. And Dr. Furman, are you going to go first?
Yes.
Dr. Furman will go first. Tell us about the elementary division.
So the picture, if there's a theme to this slide, it would be transition. So the picture on the top right would be our fifth graders busting loose Friday night at the middle school. We had our annual social where we bring together the students from Indian Rock and East York. And on one hand, our numbers for participation from both schools were down a little bit from what I had seen the previous 2 years being at this level. But in an interesting twist, the kids who were there, I think, had more fun. They were dancing, they were commingling with one another. It was just a lot of fun to see. The bottom picture, the other part of that transition is today was Step Up Day at East York. So all of the second graders from Yorkshire and students who we know from the Valley View side of town who will be coming to East York for any variety of reasons were able to come and tour the building today, and the school stairs here. But with that, what we do, we put a twist on this last year to make it more interactive for the students. What we do is we try to keep, Mrs. Coombs and I try to keep our talking to a minimum, and then the kids go on a quick tour, and what they do is they go into third grade classrooms, and what will happen is they observe a mini lesson and see what teaching and learning look like at the end of the year in third grade. But then they also get the opportunity to partner up with our current third graders to talk to them. What did you like about the transition? What should I know? Just all of those things to kind of ease their mind to hear it from somebody their own age, a peer, instead of somebody that's older than their mom. Then the other slide that I wanted to put up here as part of the transition is bringing it back to math. Every chance I'm in front of you, I want to talk about math with you a little bit. And so the DIBELS, Acadian's DIBELS is another assessment that we give that measures students' grasp of mathematics. They get a composite score that is an average of computation as well as concepts and application. And historically, our kids grow, everyday math grows them, does a tremendous job of growing them with concepts and application. What I've noticed since I've dug into the math data is computation is an issue. So at the beginning of the year, we had the Fluency Initiative, and that continued through the second week of April, so we got into testing. Add to that the fact that Dr. Ketterman, through setting up different people who came into the district from Patan, from PDE, she provided opportunities for specialists and the administrators to work with other people across the state. We learned about some different programs, and at East York, we started piloting one of those programs during the month of April. Now, ironically, I, the person who was all concerned about math at East York Elementary School, was not a really big fan of this program, and so I was like, well, it's the timing, let's pilot it, a little bit each of the grade levels. And one of my fourth grade math teachers, Mr. Hare, we were going to pilot in his room because he has a variety of students in his two sections. And he said, if we think that this might be good for all students, Why aren't we doing it with the whole grade level? I really didn't have a good answer to that. So I was like, okay, so went to Dr. Ketterman, we moved some money around and had the opportunity to do it. And with a month and a half into this program, I can't tell you the excitement level for the math teachers in our building. And so what you're looking at here are our computation scores, and this is a multi-year look. So what you see in green is beginning of the year. Let me back up a little bit, sorry. So you have your beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And the green is how we did in the 2016-17 school year, and then we've got the 17-18, and then the purple is the 18-19. And you'll see this tremendous jump with the computation piece of it. If you look at our historical progress. Put it in perspective, because I know you can't see those percentages. At the beginning of the year, 42% of our students were meeting the national benchmark for computation. And at the end of the year, looking at my entire fourth grade, 93% of students are meeting the goal at a nationally set goal. And when you look at my fourth grade, 18 to 20% of those students are EL students, are learning support students who have a variety of different historically underperforming status points, if you will. And they're the combination, the triangulation of everyday math, this new spring math that we're operating, and the tremendous teachers that I have, that triangulation, I believe, is pulling us in the right direction. So as excited as I am for this year, having all of those things in place to start next year and have a full year, we're already looking ahead with excitement as far as where this could go and what could happen. So, just wanted to share that.
Great, that's great.
Yeah. So I don't know, questions?
Any questions?
I do have one, I don't want to belabor this. If you look at the green.
Yes, sir.
That was a 16-17 school year.
It was.
Can you explain, I mean, just historically, why there was such a big dip in the middle of the year?
That was
What's the takeaway on that?
My takeaway on that, as the first year principal of the school, I'm not sure that I have a strong, do you know what I mean? Like I know, honestly, when I looked last year, we had a significant number of kids move in throughout the year. We had over 60 students, but you don't see that variable there. I honestly can't say what it
But then
was.
you see in the next phase of the testing, they jump right back up and far exceeded their beginning proficiency.
Correct.
What'd you do?
I honestly
Pretty
can't.
remarkable.
I can't speak to that middle of the year. I don't, my thought process, honestly, without going back and looking at my records, my hunch, I think that we gave that one too close to the holiday break. We usually do the mid-year benchmark in the month of December. And it's, we had this conversation the other day, picking the right time to do your testing is as equally as important as all of the work that you put in on the front end of it. And I think that year we were just too close to the holiday break, because since then we have backed it up, and we now typically do that the second week of December is when we start to do that mid-year measurement. That's my hunch, but without going back and actually looking at my assessment calendar and when we did what.
Thank you, Dr. Furr.
I've learned my lesson, I'm going to go first next time. So I was told that the month of May can get quite hectic at the high school, and it's been busy and wonderful. We had our FCCLA yard sale. I don't know if any of you went out. If so, you may have gotten blown away. It was one of the prettiest days of the year, but it was successful, and it's already on the calendar for next year. That club, that group, has also attended the leadership conference that I know that you heard about earlier. 4 students competed and 2 qualified for nationals. The exciting thing is that next year, nationals is in DC, so the hope is that the program will continue to grow, and that they'll be able to do their own fundraising in order to cover the costs for the students who might compete next year. So I'm pretty proud of that organization that's just started this year. We also had our English 4 CP students in our English department, they shared with the community and with other teachers and other students their senior projects that were service-based. And this was a month-long project for many of them, should have been anyway. And they were able to show off some of the amazing things they were able to accomplish. They took a piece of world literature or of literature that they've studied at any point, and they connected those themes to real-world situations. And the question was, what can you do? And so they created an action step, and they followed that action step through. Some then shared successes, some shared some of the struggles that anyone would have trying to make a difference in that regard. And we saw some students who were very proud of the work that they were able to do. And quite a few of them, as I walked around, were able to answer the question, what did you learn that you didn't know? And their eyes were opened to different populations or different needs in our community. And it was really neat to see all of their hard work. It was really neat for me as the former teacher of a third of them, so to see how far they've come. So that was great. We also, speaking of testing, we had our Keystones recently. We're wrapping those up with the Mako students who were absent. That went off without a hitch, I will say, thanks to Dr. Adams and his immaculate planning from the beginning to the end. It was neat to see that on the other side. And we had our bio boot camp in preparation for that yet again, where our science teachers volunteer their time to review with the students with the wealth of content that they have to cover for the biology keystones. And of course we had our algebra, and then some students also had to take the literature keystones. And as we're heading into next week, we're looking ahead to finals for our seniors and graduation. And then our underclassmen will take their finals after the seniors graduate. And I cannot wait to participate with the seniors on their tours of the buildings. I've heard that's an amazing time. And so that's what we have left.
Thank you. And the last item I want to mention are two new additions to the high school for next year from other places, other countries. Item C under the superintendent's report, the administration recommends board approval of the following two foreign exchange students at the high school for 2019-20. Adam Guzicki. Adam's from Poland. He is being hosted by Amicus, and he will spend the entire school year with Paul and Yvette Weber. They reside at 700 Greendale Road. Their children, Abigail and Mitchell, are YS alumni. Mitchell will be completing an internship locally next year, and he will be present for part of the school year. And the other student is Ella Peterson. Ella is from Belgium. She will be hosted by the Rotary Club of York. Her host family will be Joe and Amber Seidel. Their address is 1679 Sleepy Hollow Road in York. Their daughter, Jalise, will be a sophomore for the 2019-20 school year. Seidels have been the first Rotary hosted family for many years.
So moved.
Second.
Mason?
Be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
That concludes superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
You have some numbers for me, I'll bet, on kindergarten registration?
No,
Where it stands
I
now?
don't. I don't have any numbers for you right now. Kindergarten
Are they still
registration.
coming in, I mean, sort of?
There's only been a few that, right, Ms. Mason, that have come in since
I can get
the
the
big
numbers
time.
from the office tomorrow and
Okay,
email.
thank you.
Okay.
And before we leave the administrator's report, I just wanted to acknowledge that Dr. Furman has a graduate-to-be. Extend our congratulations to the Furman clan for that milestone. That's a biggie, and congratulations to him and to you. Yep. Okay, business report. Ms. Mason.
Thank you. Tonight is a consent agenda. You have before you the business office report, which includes items A through O. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, I would ask that a motion be made to approve the below-mentioned items.
So moved.
Second.
short, can't we?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Informational items. The All Sports Boosters Club donated $11,150 for a contribution reimbursement for the scoreboard in the high school gym and for the hurdles. Any questions on the dining report or the sales activity report from the food service?
Sure.
The question that I kind of missed here under O, the approval of the bid from Lions Recreation for Miracle Records will be fully reimbursed by the Valley View PTO, $22,000. What is that?
It's playground equipment.
Thank you.
If you look at that, I just wanted to comment about that as well. $22,000 raised by the Valley View PTO and $11,000 and change raised by the All Sports Booster Club. I mean, that's incredible, and I just to publicly extend our thanks to both of those groups, because that's a big help to the taxpayer. I mean, they are taxpayers, but that's great.
That concludes my report.
Okay. Lauren?
I'd like to first give you some updates on our spring sports teams' postseason standings. Unfortunately, both boys lacrosse and boys tennis lost in the first round of districts. Boys volleyball suffered a tough loss to Central York in the county semifinals, but is battling Cocalico in the district quarterfinals as we speak. As far as I know, they're up 2-1, but I haven't heard updates in about 45 minutes now, so I don't know. They won. Oh, they won?
Oh,
and now
good.
they're going to the state tournament. Great. So, yeah. Last but not least, senior Andrew Paskey from our boys track and field team placed third in the 300-meter hurdles at districts and will be competing at states as well. Our elementary schools have had all sorts of fun and exciting events happening in the past week, ranging from Orange and Black Day to a field trip to Perrydale to Race for Education. Meanwhile, the secondary students, as Ms. Jackson said, have been keystone in AP testing and are now switching gears to prepare for final exams. Luckily for the seniors, this is our last week of high school, and commencement will be here before we know it. That's all I have to share, but before I conclude my report, I'd like to thank all of you for the experience I've gained this year as student representative. It has made me more aware of all the important things you do for our district, and the value of this experience will benefit me throughout all my future endeavors. I wish the best of luck to Sophia for her year as student representative, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Sophia. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
You want to just briefly tell us something about yourself, or what are you into, or
Well, thank you for the warm welcome. I guess this is my mom, Melissa, by the way.
Hi, Mom.
Chris, my dad, could unfortunately not be here tonight. I guess something about myself is that I was really looking forward to this position. I'm very happy to be elected. I also really hope to represent my school well and to relay any concerns, thoughts, or questions back to my school and vice versa, my school back to you guys. So I'm just very happy to have this position, and I can't wait to, sorry, I'm a little sick, I have a cold, but
Great.
I can't wait to go forward with the position, so.
Super.
Yeah,
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, committee reports. You have the schedule is printed. Communications Committee, Mr. Scalette.
Well, thank you. The activities and communication reports are provided. The April 10 minutes are provided. I could give a quick synopsis of our last meeting. The main item of discussion was about how we are communicating to the external constituents of the district. That is, those people who do not have children in the district or are not regularly getting communications, who are not hooked into the social media. How is it that we as a district can reach that part of the taxpayer base and let them know the great things that York Suburban is doing? So what came out of that discussion was the idea of running a few spots in the Community Courier, which is a periodical that goes to every home in the district, and also running a postcard that would go to every homeowner. And to do both of those as a kind of experiment where part of the communication would be to direct traffic to YSSD, the website, and for us to measure if there's any increase in traffic to the website as one mechanism for us to see whether this kind of outreach is a worthwhile endeavor or not. So the proposal from the committee was to do this on an experimental basis, see if there's any feedback we get that seems to justify it, and then to reassess whether this is a worthwhile route. Anything else?
Questions?
Members?
A brilliant synopsis.
Okay, I guess that, and in terms of the communications, I would like to say to the community, please let us know how we're communicating and ways that we can continue to improve that. And we're also interested in the communications of the district to its internal, the internal constituents as well. So that's sort of an ongoing point of discussion for the Communications Committee.
Okay, thank you. Facilities Committee, Mrs. Fryrick?
Yes, you have before you the April 3rd minutes that were approved by the committee. I'll also say that the facilities group under Barry Gerling's direction are gearing up for another busy summer. Not only do they have some of the larger projects that you've been approving the bids on, but there's a lot of movement going around down at East York. They'll have to take all the teachers in the front of the building out of their classrooms, lock, stock, and barrel, so we can do the flooring work in there and then put them all back in. And then at the middle school, there will be a considerable amount of movement of teachers because as they regroup them differently for the proposed change in grouping down there. So that will take a considerable effort, and in the personnel report, you'll be approving several people for the summertime crew that also works on the grounds. That's mulching, edging, pruning bushes, and those kinds of things. And that concludes my report.
Okay, Finance Committee, Mr. Sears.
Okay, the minutes of the April 10th committee meeting are provided. We met last Wednesday, May 15th. Corrine gave us a rundown on the cost of the proposed junior high soccer program with total annual expenses of approximately $18,000 a year. There was a question about uniform cost, and the estimate was between $2,500 and $4,000 per team of 36. So that's the order of magnitude that we're looking at there. Ms. Mason also informed us that there had been a request, I guess by one of the bowling centers, to form a bowling team. And the initial request would be for a club team, club status. To benchmark the cost, she reported that York Tech is now spending about $1,200 a year on their team. Club members can qualify for individual YAIAA competition, if I understood that correctly, but the team would not. So there's still some linkage between club sports and the formal competitions for individual students. I did a brief synopsis of a couple of bills that are pending in the General Assembly that are designed to reduce the district's cost of cyber charter education for students who would attend an in-house cyber program. The two bills are HB 526 and SB 34, which essentially say that if parents, it would require parents to pay tuition if their children attend a cyber charter school and their district of residence offers a full-time option. That's the essence of both of those bills. PSBA has provided us a resolution, which we talked about, which supports those bills, and we discussed in the meeting, there were 6 of us present, that we would bring that resolution before this body of a whole this evening and bring that for a vote. I have some additional information on that for folks who might want to investigate that a little bit further. We are spending, I think, currently $1.1 million charter education, cyber charter education. Significant opportunity for districts that would choose to take the step of creating an in-house academy.
Did you want to make a motion so that we can have a second in discussion?
Yeah, that's actually a bullet point on the Finance Committee report tonight.
Right.
So I guess we could do that now.
Yeah.
And that's item number 2, D2 within the committees. Finance Committee recommends approval of the resolution supporting statewide cyber charter school funding reform as discussed at the May 15th committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Hopefully, everybody had a chance to read it. We received that over the weekend from Dr. Williams, so if there's any questions or comments or discussion?
I would just like to update the number that I told you at the finance meeting, is that it's actually currently at 1.6 million, not 1.1. Yes.
Significant potential.
Right. Right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we want to, no discussion then? We want to go ahead and vote
This
then?
will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Meeting was adjourned at 6:10 PM, and our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, not Wednesday, June 10th at 5 PM.
Okay, anything for Mr. Sears? All right, thank you. Personnel Committee, Mr. Robinson, now you also have an addendum if you've missed it in your table. I'm going to say that, sorry, stepped on your toes.
Of course. You wounded me.
Sorry.
You have before you the personnel report, which includes resignation, employment, substitute, volunteers, and appointment of medical personnel, including an addendum with a late-breaking hire of a Spanish Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below-mentioned items.
Second. Second.
Okay, questions, discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. We're hiring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for summer help. How does that compare with last year, with the number of people that we hired? Do you know, Ms. Mason?
I do not, I'm not keeping track of HR.
Okay. I'm going to have to ask Mrs. Feely to.
You have information for us on that?
I believe it's the same.
Same? Okay, thank you.
And a quick question on 5, do we have to provide the dental services to the non-public schools, the students who attend the private schools in our district?
Boy, that's a really good
Yeah, you have to provide a level of nursing service.
Right, nursing's a no-brainer.
I don't know if the provision on school dentist applies to them.
I don't know that either.
And I'm trying to,
I
Don't know if it's...
I was under the impression we did.
I think it does. I think they have to have one visit a year there.
I think it does.
I'm pretty sure. I always forget about the dentist. But yes, I believe so.
I can add that on the email tomorrow when I give the kindergarten.
Yeah, but I also think they used to do fluoride with respect to that visit. Yeah, I'm fairly certain they do.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It's a good question.
Yeah. It's an old, very old division of the school code.
Yeah, from 1949.
Yes.
Antiquated.
Yes. At least 60 years.
Any other questions or?
Question on, Ms. Flores' employment. Excuse me, is this a double cert, Spanish and ESL?
Correct.
And how will she be deployed in the upcoming
Little of
school
both.
year? Little of both?
Yes.
Thank you.
Before I conclude my report, I would also like to mention that Mr. Sears and I are working on the final touches for Act 93 with some verbiage tweaks.
Yeah, thank you. We need to vote on the,
Of course.
okay. Yeah, it's a consent agenda, I get it, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, that concludes my report.
Ms. Mason, go for it.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, there we go, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to conclude now.
Thank you, Mr.
Volunteer,
Robinson.
what can I tell you?
That's right. That's right. Any other committees needing to report or questions for any committees? Okay, legislative update. You're back.
Okay, I'll try to do better this time.
No worries.
Not much specifically to report on the legislative front concerning individual visits to our legislators, but I would like to mention that a legislative package of bills concerning charter schools has apparently been slowed in its progress at the State House. I'm sure you've all read these bills assiduously, but in case you haven't, they are bills H 355, 356, 357, and 358. 355 concerns advertisements of charter schools and calls for a provision to outline that charters are being paid for by tax dollars. I think currently ads push the fact that it's tuition-free. So I think this is a correction of
Right.
that misnomer. 356 permits registration of charter students at post-secondary institutions of education. 357 and 358 are a little bit more serious in that both expand the purview of charter schools without much oversight. One particularly, 357 I believe it is, gives charter schools the right of first refusal for school buildings in a district. And 358, I'm blocking that. But I will report on a future date. I think the important factor here is that these bills were all being packaged and rushed out of committee for a vote. They've been slowed. I don't want to say it was because Suburban sent a team to the advocacy day, but hey, we were there. Then they were slowed. The inference is clear, no? And in addition, as Dr. has been mentioned, there is a bill pending, I think it's 1406, calling for astronomical increases in staffing patterns of school nurses, guidance counselors, and social workers. I don't think there's been much attention given to how these additional positions would be paid for. But that's no surprise. We'll keep tabs on that and report periodically on how this develops. If there are no questions, that concludes the legislative report.
Anything for Mr. Robinson? Okay, the IU, Mrs. Fryrick.
Yeah, you have before you the Dawn's Early Light with highlights of the LIU board member. I believe the new executive director is in place, and you've had an opportunity at the superintendent meeting to get to know him a little bit. The LIU Joint Operating Authority doesn't meet this month, so I do not have a report. And I'll continue with the York Adams Academy report to say that we have graduation on June 4th at 7 p.m. at the York Learning Center. You are all more than welcome to come. I know that we will have at least one York Suburban person graduating. She was also honored last week at the Rotary Club of York. Dr. Williams was able to be there. And so it's exciting to know that at least we have one York Suburban person, graduating. We have over 50 students who are, as of this point, ready to graduate. And that concludes my report.
And okay, so Tax Bureau.
No report.
And I have no report for the School of Technology. Thanks again for members of the public for joining us this evening. A reminder that we have only one board meeting in June on the 17th. And one last opportunity for public comment.
An update
Oh.
on the summer students. We hire 10 to 12 every year, and the 5 that are on the agenda are new this year. The rest are all returning.
Okay, so there is approximately 10 to 12 of them working good.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? If not, we'll stand adjourned.